we're going to be looking at arm action mechanics with deGrom, Stroman. More specifically, the sensation that I see fit to kind of call pulling the arm into release. All right. Now, the Mets broadcast, I believe it's SNY, right? They do a great job when they do these kind of behind slow-mos, if you will. Let's see. Hold on. I have it. Yeah, these Subaru Super Mos. These things are great. It's going to give us a really good visual with this topic. The reason I wanted to do a video on this, or a screening on this, because I've done videos explaining this dynamic, but I've never really done like screenings. I have never really had a good visual. And then I was actually watching deGrom's outing the other day, and after a 101 heater biscuit they did this video, and I was like, that's sensational. So just to give you some context on the flip side of this, when we look at the arm action mechanics and more so specifically looking at like guys that have a pushy arm action or push the ball into release, usually it's a segmentation breakdown, right? So when you look at segmentation and essentially the individual's ability to segment upper and lower rotation, right? So you have the hip rotation mechanics and you have trunk rotation mechanics. And we know that we want to essentially delay trunk and initiate hips early. So at that point of anchor in which our lead foot anchors into the ground, we want to have what I call stretch. Okay. So I call it stretch. You essentially are just building this rotational energy, right? And everyone wants to know how to develop arm speed and what is arm speed, essentially how to get arm speed. For me, arm speed has nothing to do with the arm. It's about leveraging the arm, utilizing this rotational energy that we're creating and just having the hand in the right optimal position to be leveraged by all of this energy that we're creating. So like I said, this video shouldn't take long. I just want to showcase this here. It's interesting. I have these two videos synced up at ball release, but I want to say the Stroman actual speed is the difference here, in which why I have to start deGrom's a little bit later than Stroman's to get him at ball release. But either way, you can kind of tell when we get parallel here with the hand and the elbow and the shoulder for deGrom. Let's kind of get out of that and get it to where Stroman is too, parallel. So you can see with both of them, all right? You can see with both of them the initiation of hip rotation. So you can you see by the seam on their pants that it's already being initiated at the time in which their hand is parallel with their elbow and shoulder. Okay, so obviously everyone's going to be different in terms of the way that they throw a baseball. But I just did a whole chapter on hip rotation mechanics within the ebook that I'm writing. And I came up with the conclusion, like the timing of which hip rotation is initiated varies very, very minimally. Like we want to initiate hip rotation pretty much at the center, the middle of our drive phase. All right. And I know you can't see within these videos with where the drive phase is, but that's kind of where I would start with the question of when do we essentially rotate our hips. So you want to start rotating your hips essentially fairly early, earlier than I think a lot of people expect. Can't tell you how many times I get people to comment on my stuff saying your hips are rotating too early. So when we initiate hip rotation early, this is what allows us to create this rotational energy. And this is the effect, and deGrom's obviously and Stroman too is very, very efficient at this. You can just see with the way his jersey is, and looking at like the shoulder and looking at, if we were to have circles on the actual like hip bone, right? You can see I wish you can see the lead foot, but you can see this sensation of having the arm being pulled through, right? Having the arm being pulled through, releasing of this rotational energy. And this is what I call launching from stretch, right? And we talk a lot about how that is efficient in terms of the lower body mechanics, but no one really talks about how this entire dynamic has everything to do with the actual arm action mechanics, right? So the biggest goal for me in terms of arm action mechanics is we don't want to force the arm to generate independent energy. We want to utilize the energy system that our body is creating, right? So our body is creating essentially forward force, ground force, and rotational energy. So this, we have all kind of different types of energy, and we want essentially to put our arm in the best possible position to be leveraged accordingly, and to utilize this. This is why you guys see that a lot of people or a lot of pitchers that throw at high power output, you'll notice the commonality of like the shoulder external rotation or layback that you see. And then, I get a lot of kids asking me about their external rotation, and they're like, why am I so limited? And a lot of it is much in part to, could be a movement restriction, obviously, but much in part to the disconnect from their arm action mechanics and their body, and not being able to leverage the arm, leverage the hand into the slot by pulling the arm through and releasing rotational energy. So just, again, you can see this, how this is kind of occurring, right? If we really just key in on this, the hips posture, rotating forward, inward, right? While this trunk kind of stays in its plane, a little bit of counter rotation, right? And then you're really going to notice that it's a big like pulling effect with the the big muscle groups, right? The pec, the shoulder, the lat, instead of, which I guess we'll dive into the instead of here in a little bit, but just notice this. Right? So hips initiate its rotation. Boom, you get to the point of anchoring down. Now you can release that tension. You can release that stretch. It's like pulling a rubber band to the maximum amount of stretch that it can possibly go, and just launching it from that maximum amount of stretch. And then the arm is just a byproduct, just pulls its way in, which allows the arm to then accelerate into its slot at a greater rate of acceleration or arm speed because of all of this energy that's been built up by the body, right? And then, like I said, instead of where we see guys that get, pushy arm actions where it's a segmentation breakdown, essentially, you'll see the trunk and the hips essentially move together, right? They move together, all in correlation to where their front foot is in space, right? Like that's kind of the biggest indication in terms of launching from stretch and segmentation, is like nothing really matters until you anchor down. You know what I mean? So guys that have that pushy arm action, the two essentially upper body, lower body move together. And then what happens is now you put your hand and your arm, instead of having it back here, as you see with these two guys, and creating this stretch, instead of that, it kind of just moves with the hips and goes with the trunk. So then by the time you anchor down, then it's just like you can't really have much rotational energy to release. You don't have a lot of stretch to release. It's just like, all right, now I'm going to complete trunk rotation, which then just pushes the arm into its release slot. So it's a restriction of rotational energy or torque, or I call it stretch. It's that restriction there that limits the amount of arm speed, limits the amount of energy that the body's created to leverage the arm. Like I said, this video shouldn't have been this long, just because there's a lot of context here. So hopefully that gave you a pretty good insight. If you want more insight like this, one, I encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube. Two, subscribe to the YouTube and have an opportunity to potentially win free pitching. I'm trying. You guys ever realize how hard it is to talk and write at the same time? Free ebook, essentially. I'm working on a complete guide to pitching mechanics ebook right now, and it should be completed here within the month. I'm going to be doing, as soon as that's done, I'm going to have 2 different copies. One copy for instructors, coaches. It's going to be a big, deep dive into all of these concepts, whereas the players edition is going to have a little bit more simplistic approach with more emphasis on like, hey, this is what you should feel. These are the progressions. But like I said, 5 free ebook copies, complete guide to pitching mechanics. In order to enter, to potentially win, you have to be subscribed and be active on my channel by leaving comments. And I will pick a random giveaway winner in a month or 2. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It's your boy Robby Rowe here. Comment below who you want me to break down. I got to do another breakdown on Corbin Burns because he's absolutely shoving, about to break some records. So I got to do that breakdown. And then I think there's another one that I got to do. But we'll get to it. Love you guys. God bless. Enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.